Hi guys, welcome to Career Launcher. My name is Abhilasha and I am here to help you prepare for CUET 2027. So in today's session, we are going to be covering figures of speech, and this is important for you because your exam tests you on these questions. Now, figures of speech or poetic devices as we call them are part of almost all exams, and they're used to make language very beautiful, and that is why learning about figures of speech is very important. Writers use it to create vivid imagery, emphasize ideas, or evoke emotions, right? So we use a lot of literary devices or figurative devices. So let's learn these. The first and the foremost is simile. Now, simile is where you use a comparison or you draw a comparison between two very unlike things using words such as like or as. So when you use a word of comparison to compare two different things, absolutely different things, then that's called a simile. For example, her smile was bright like the morning sun, right? He is, or the night sky was as black as coal. So I've used comparison between the night sky and coal using the word as, right? So similarly, comparison between two things using a word of comparison. Metaphor, of course, is also a comparison, but here you do not use a word of comparison. You simply assert that one thing is another. For example, time is a thief stealing our moment. So I'm saying time is a thief. I should have said time is like a thief, right? Just like thief will steal some of our things. Similarly, time is stealing time, moments, right? So that would be a person, that would be a metaphor. So when you compare two things but don't use a word of comparison, that's called a metaphor. Personification, when you give human qualities, feelings, or actions to non-human entities, objects, or concepts, that's called personification. So when you say the stubborn front door refused to open, now is the door supposed to open? I mean, by itself? No, somebody opens the door. So here I am sort of trying to personify that the door is like a person and it is not opening. So therefore, or sorry, I should have said that it refused, not open, but refused. So here the door refusing to do something would be personification. The door being stubborn, this is called a transferred epithet. Okay. So when I ascribe a quality of one thing onto another, so a person is stubborn, it's not the door that is stubborn. So in this case, this stubborn front door, stubborn would be a transferred epithet. Let me write that here. Transferred epithet. Okay. All right. Hyperbole is an intentional extreme exaggeration used for emphasis or dramatic effect, not meant to be taken literally. So I've told you a million times to clean your room. I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. Nobody can eat a horse, but when you say it, it is exaggeration, right? So hyperbole is when you exaggerate something just to any limit. Okay, that's called hyperbole. An idiom, of course, is a culturally understood phrase or expression whose figurative meaning cannot be deduced from the literal definitions. So it is don't burn the candle at both ends. Now, nobody is burning the candle actually. It just means that don't work so hard that the candle has to be burnt from both sides. That much work, that much hard work. Don't do that. Right now, imagery is another figure of speech, and imagery says use descriptive language that appeals directly to the five senses, to your sight, sound, touch, taste, smell, to build a scene in the reader's mind. For example, the crisp autumn wind whistled through barren golden trees. Now this, the crisp autumn wind whistling, is creating a picture in my mind. Similarly, barren golden trees, again creating a picture in my mind. So when language appeals directly to the sense and it helps you create a vision in your mind, that's called imagery. Now, alliteration is the repetition of identical initial consonants which are used in neighboring words. So for example, Peter picked a pack of pickled peppers. There's another one that I really like, and that is Betty Botter bought some butter, but the butter was so bitter that Betty Botter bought some better butter to make the bitter butter better. Now here I am repeating the B sound again and again. So that's called an alliteration. Okay. Onomatopoeia is words which imitate the actual sound associated with the action or object they describe. The fireplace logs crinkled and popped. So the popping sound, the crinkling sound, that is what the sound words represent. So that's onomatopoeia. Alright, now there are advanced literary devices also which manipulate sentence structure, word meanings and logical contrast to add depth to your writing. So there are many advanced figurative tools also. For example, here are two, and these are very interesting. So you have metonymy and synecdoche. Now this is something that is tested a lot in your exam. Metonymy is when you replace one concept with something closely linked to it. Okay, so for example, the crown issued a statement. So the crown represents royal authority. The White House represents the US government, right? So when you say White House, it is representing the US government. When you say crown or scepter, you are talking about the monarchy. Synecdoche is when you use an actual physical part to represent the entire whole, or the other way around. So all hands on deck. Now the hands don't need to be on the deck. It means the crew members need to be on the deck. Nice wheels. So here wheels are not actually nice. It is the car that is nice. So that's what metonymy and synecdoche are. Oxymoron and paradox. Now here also there are two opposites that are existing in oxymoron, two opposite words right next to each other. So living dead, deafening silence, working holiday. If you're working, then it can't be a holiday. So these words are oxymoron, right? You have two opposites. And paradox is a statement that seems illogical but reveals a deeper truth. So I must be cruel only to be kind. So how can you be cruel and how can you be kind at the same time? So that's the paradox. Okay. All right. Anaphora versus epistrophe or epiphora, either, whatever you want to call it. Anaphora, the repetition of the word or phrase is at the start of back-to-back clauses. And epistrophe or epiphora is when the repeated word or phrase is at the end of back-to-back clauses. So for example, I have a dream, I have a dream. Government of the people, by the people, for the people. So that's an epistrophe. Alliteration and assonance. In alliteration, the consonant sound at the beginning of the word is there. In assonance, the vowel sound inside nearby words is repeated. So the rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain. A. That A sound is there, right? This is called assonance. Now, one more thing. When S consonant is repeated, okay, it is also called sibilance. Specifically S is repeated, then it is called sibilance also. So here this is silly, sally, swiftly, swam is actually an example of sibilance, but consonant sound only. Alright, here are a few questions. The White House announced a new trade agreement today. What device is used when the White House stands for the presidential administration? You have what, 30 seconds to look at this question. Is it a synecdoche? Is it metonymy? Is it oxymoron? Is it paradox? The correct answer, remember, I'm using part to whole. If I use part to whole, it is what? And if I use something like something different to compare, what is that? Okay, let's just go back to that page and check. So metonymy is something different. Synecdoche is part to whole. So here we are using something different. So therefore that's metonymy. Synecdoche is part to whole. Okay. So correct answer, metonymy. All hands on deck. Now here hands is an example of the person. So that is what? Synecdoche. Now we already know that. Correct? Okay, let's look at the next one. The deafening silence filled the room after the news was delivered. So, what is now here we have two opposite words, deafening and silence put together. What do these represent? Take a minute and tell me. What is deafening silence? What figure of speech is this? You know, two opposite words when they're put together, what are they called? So when two opposite words are put together, they're called an oxymoron, right? So deafening and silence put together, oxymoron. In paradox, there are two opposites, but the concepts are opposite, right? Concepts are opposing. All right. I must be cruel only to be kind. See, here is a very beautiful paradox. Okay, we shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds, we shall fight in the fields. This we shall repetition of phrases or words at the beginning of successive clauses is called anaphora. Okay, it is called anaphora. I came, I saw, I conquered. I. See? All right. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. So when there is repetition at the end of consecutive clauses, it is called epiphora or epistrophe. Okay? You can also call it epiphora or epistrophe. Okay? Acha, there is also apostrophe. What is apostrophe? In an apostrophe, I call it, I address a non-living or a dead person. So a non-living thing or a dead person. Okay? Or dead person as living. So I say, oh, Atlas. Now Atlas is not there. Can you help me? Okay, that this form of address is called apostrophe. Okay. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Of course, I know the repetition of the initial P sound is called, tell me. It is called alliteration, right? Alright, the rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain. The A is assonance. When you repeat internal vowel sound, it is called assonance. He was a real Romeo around the new students. When you refer to a famous literary character without explaining it, it is called allusion, right? So I am using a reference. So it is an indirect reference to someone, to famous literary character. That's called allusion. You are alluding to Romeo. A white dove used in a story to represent world peace. Now, when you use something like this, it is called symbolism. I am using X as a symbol of Y. So here we are using dove as a symbol of peace. Right? So that is what. So it is symbolism that we are using here. The sun was a golden coin shining in the sky. Now, is it a simile, metaphor, hyperbole, or personification? Well, I'm comparing the sun to a golden sky, golden coin, right? That is the comparison. Have I used a word of comparison? No. So then this can't be a simile, it has to be a metaphor. Okay. All right. The thunder grumbled in the distance as the storm approached. Wow, the thunder is grumbling and the storm is approaching. what have we done? We have definitely given human behavior to thunder and storm. So, personification. The thunder is grumbling. It is personified. Correct? Alright, the next one. He was so tired that he could sleep for 100 years. So tired he could sleep for 100 years. Can anyone sleep for 100 years except for Sleeping Beauty? No. So this is an exaggeration, right? So therefore, hyperbole. When we exaggerate something, it is called hyperbole. Okay? Just too much exaggeration is that. Okay, the next one. So after days of non-stop work, she decided to call it a day. Now, call it a day is an idiom, right? Idiom is just language that we use commonly to represent something or the other. So what does that mean? To call it a day essentially means to stop working, right? So stop working on a task is to call it a day, right? And not name the day of the week, not work through the night, not start a new project. If you're working late, okay, then either you are burning the midnight oil or you are, what should I say, burning the midnight oil, or you are, the other thing will be burning the candle at both ends. Yeah, so the correct answer, of course, we've already said is working late, stop working on a task. But these are idioms of working late. All right, what a beautiful idiom this one is, huh? So the leaves are dancing, correct? Now, if the leaves are dancing, what are we saying? The leaves danced gracefully across the lawn. So I have given the quality of dancing to the leaves, right? Can the leaves really dance? No, but here they are. It was like the daisies are dancing, right? Now the daisies are dancing 30,000 at a glance. So that is personification, right? When you are personifying, when you're giving human-like qualities to your, what should I say, your non-living thing, right? So whenever you give a non-living thing human-like qualities, right, then that is called personification. I've already told you that there is something called an apostrophe also. In an apostrophe, you would say, "Oh, leaves, stop dancing," right? So now here, this addressing the dead thing or the non-living thing with, you know, like a human, like a live human is called apostrophe. Okay, so that is a different figure of speech, but yes, we do use it sometimes. There's another one that you should know, and I will quickly write it down here, and that is called euphemism, which is used very often, and dysphemism. Okay. Now, euphemism is essentially saying something very bad in gentle terms. Okay. So, for example, somebody dies, you say they are no longer with us. Yeah. When you fire somebody, you say you've been handed the pink slip. These are gentle ways of saying something very bad. Dysphemism is saying something in very bad terms. Okay. So when you're using dysphomism, you're saying something in very bad terms, in a very crude language. So for example, somebody is dead, you say they are in the boneyard. That's a very rude, rough language to use. When somebody, let's say, is pregnant, you say that they've been knocked up. These are very rude ways of saying certain things, correct? So this, of course, we call as euphemism and dysphemism. These are also two figures of speech that you should know. All right, guys, let's end this session for today. Please remember to keep practicing. If you find this session useful, remember to hit like, subscribe, and also share. And if you wish to join us at Career Launcher 81300038, 836 is our number. And of course, I will see you same time, same place next week. And you know what that place is. So here on our favorite CUET YouTube channel, remember today is Thursday, every Thursday. All right, guys, that's it from me. Thank you so much. I will see you next week. Bye-bye.